Welcome to another episode of Oh My Lordi. I'm Tyler Lordi, and today's episode, we're going to talk about operations. Not how it necessarily all got started, but how it kicked off and the struggles of going from, a solo operator to the team I have now. And we'll talk about the hardships, obviously, the successes of it all, and then kind of where we're at and then where I'm trying to take it now, because I'll be the first to say I definitely don't have it all together, don't have all the answers. But I think there's definitely a unique way to go about things that we've done. And there's a lot of important lessons that you could maybe learn from and not get so hung up on the technical aspects or it should be done a specific way. Because let's be honest, I think there's a lot of different ways to skin a cat. I think when it comes to operations, when it comes to building a team, there's too many factors in play that people just don't consider. They think things are black and white. And that's certainly not the case. So I hope this episode really gives you some value, maybe some insights. Again, I started this to get people to maybe think differently, to act differently. And I think this could potentially have a big impact. So if you're a huge company that's looking to scale past 10 million, you probably don't need to listen to this. But if you're just starting out, maybe you're looking for some unique ways to build a team or unique aspects or ways to go about it, ways of thinking about growing a team, this could be for you. So I hope you guys enjoy it. Oh My Lordi podcast. When I first started, and I can't say a solo operator, right? Because I have my wife there, thank God. Because, having another job, not that my wife didn't, she was raising our son. She was home. She was able to kind of hold down the fort while I was away working another job. And I think I talked about that in the first episode. Things were a little crazy where she would manage some of our sales calls and I would try and hit discovery calls between, work or lunch or whatever it was. We just ultimately did what we had to do. And I think as entrepreneurs, as business owners in the beginning, you have to do what you have to do and you have to grind it out. And it's messy and there's no good way to set it up. And I think that's where a lot of people get stuck in the beginning. They try and set up this perfect, system. And truthfully, I don't think that exists for someone starting a business. You have to grind it out. You've got to work through the craziness, the nonsense to figure things out and then to continue to grow. And I think you learn a lot about yourself. I certainly did. I learned a lot. And obviously it got us to the decision of, going full time in our business. But don't think that everything needs to be perfect. Don't think you need to have a system in place to get started. You just have to get started and your system will be created from that. So I think that's one of the most important. If you guys don't get anything out of this, hopefully you get some encouragement, some approval there where you just need to get started. You don't necessarily need a system. It's okay. So I think, again, juggling all of that was needed. It was definitely needed. And we know when we went full time, and my wife was taking care of the kids, that's really kind of where I went at it alone. And it was tough. I definitely leaned on my wife a lot in the beginning, doing some sales calls. And I literally took on the role of every aspect of the business, and if you're not running, obviously, a marketing agency, things are going to be a little different. But, as far as the services, obviously, that we provide. But I was doing the lead generation. I was doing the sales calls. I was doing the web design. I was doing the SEO. I was doing the Google and Facebook ads. I was literally doing everything. And so I think, a lot of times that's important. And when you have more time than money, then it's important to do that. And then you can learn, like I said, a lot about not only your services, you can learn about yourself, you can learn about expectations. And, I'll be honest, like there were times where we signed on a client and then they would leave a month later, or even less than a month later, because we failed them. Right. So you quickly learn how not to do things. I think that's where, those lessons are invaluable. And I think it's so important for people to just get started and not necessarily go and think they need a specific like black book where they just follow it to a T. Like, I don't think you're going to be able to scale that and grow that because it's not you. And let's be honest, there's human touches and approaches to this stuff. It's not just a system. So tons of lessons learned along the way. When we got our first client, we had no idea what we were doing, but we figured it out. And I should say, I figured it out, right? Like when it was just me when we went full time. And then you start to learn, what you don't like to do. And I think that's when you're kind of like, okay, I need to hire. So I get the question a lot, like, hey, when was your first hire? When should I hire? And again, I don't know that there's an exact answer. Some people might argue. I knew it was time for me to hire when I didn't want to do that specific task anymore. Or when I knew, better yet, when I knew my energy and time was better focused on this thing versus that thing, right? And at the end of the day, when we want to grow a company, we need to focus on money making activities, right? So either we need to find someone who can do that, or we need to do that and find someone who's going to operate, right? So our big focus in the beginning was SEO and websites, obviously. And so my first hire was our SEO manager. That was probably one of the most important hires. He's still on the team today, and who knows, maybe I'll have him on an episode and we can chat it up. But I'm so forever grateful for our relationship and what we've been able to build. And I think that one of the big factors in our relationship has just been super open and honest conversations, what we want to accomplish together, what we want to accomplish individually, obviously, and then just having, open the floodgates. Don't, again, this is kind of where maybe I'm a little bit unorthodox. Don't just put a system in place and follow it to a T, because you're not going to allow people to grow. You're not going to allow people to think freely. So when I made that hire, the kind of arrangement was, hey, like, we're doing this together. We're going to figure this out. We're going to adapt. We're not going to be like every other company that offers XYZ. I want to offer A, B, C, D, E, F, G, all the way through. And I want to be able to pivot. I want to create a new alphabet if I need to. So that was like from day one, that was the arrangement, and that was the agreement. That was the vision. And I think that's why, 3-4 years later, that person is still a major, part of this team. And, he's still to this day. He was just like, I remember when we talked about salary, when we talked about payment, it was nowhere near what it is now. But I said, hey, this is going to be something that you can help me grow into and you're going to grow with. And he's probably getting paid 10 times what he was getting paid then. I don't know. But it's definitely been fruitful for the both of us, I think. And it's been fun. And I think that's probably, that hire alone and that experience shaped the way I went about hiring all of my other employees and the expectations I had, and I have for them now. So again, people might think I'm crazy, or, that's not the way you do things. That's the way we do things. And, it's gotten us this far. So am I going to say that we're perfect? Absolutely not. Like I said, I think there's a lot of things that we can work on and grow with, but, I think that's an important aspect that needs to be considered for sure. So just really going with the flow, not being stuck in a system, being, and allowing them to be freely thinking to create that system with you. I think that's huge. So I urge people to, when they do their first hire, and listen, if you're an established business, you're not going to be doing something like this probably. But if you're a growing business, if you're a solo operator, it could be beneficial to have, someone like this. And that kind of leads me into the next part of, having a strategic partner, whether it's, an employee that you think of as a strategic partner of, their focus is this and your focus is that, or it's a legitimate strategic partner. And that was probably my second hire, so to speak, or a relationship created, I should say, not really hire. Relationship created was a partner where they were able to be the face, the lead generation machine to everything that we do. And I think those strategic partnerships are so important in a lot of ways. No, I wouldn't necessarily in some situations completely rely on that. But I think they're very valuable. And I know for sure that mine was. So, that's definitely a big piece of it. So, kind of just talking about leveraging expertise from, either strategic partners or employees or contractors. I think you need to address, where you are now, what you're good at, what you do and don't want to do. And then really look to hire people that are smarter than you. I think that goes without being said. I think a lot of people in some situations hire, I like to call it button pushers. Maybe that's not the right term, but button pushers. I tell everyone on my team, I don't want a button pusher. If you're here to just push buttons, this is probably not the fit for you. If you want a higher level thinking position, if you want to have an impact on how this company runs and how the overall success of the company, then this is for you, because I look to hire in each role someone who's definitely smarter than me, or has that drive to focus in on that role more so than I do, obviously, which it's not hard. You know what I mean? But coming from a place where I literally learned everything, web design, SEO, ads, lead generation, sales, everything, it's important for me to bring someone on that's going to encompass that specific role and really form it, right? And that's where, again, every single position, every person on the team is hired because they do their job better than I ever did. And they have the ability to do so, right? I don't put them in a box. So during team meetings, during one-on-one sessions, very open, hey, do you need everything? Do you need anything to accomplish the goal that we have? Do you need anything to make your job easier? Right? So we constantly have conversations like that. That way, we're not handcuffed to anything. So I think those are very important outlooks when it comes to operations and talking with your team. Now, I think the challenges, and I could be talking about unicorns in some situations. People might call them unicorns. I think I'm extremely, extremely blessed to have the team members that I have on my team. And I'd like to think they're all unicorns, to be honest. People are like, how did you find, all those different pieces? Part of it could be just too much trust. I don't know. Part of it could be that I like to think that we don't, again, put them in that box. We give them that freedom to do what is needed. I like to say, we obviously know what we need to do. We know the goal, right? We know the end goal. And I tell people, I don't care what you do in the middle, as long as we hit that goal. So, there's times where I don't have a system to what we're doing, but I give them the freedom to then do it and form that, as long as it eventually hits that end goal. So I think that's something super important to have. And there's a lot of scenarios where that doesn't make sense, right? In some aspects of the business, but I think having that free level of thinking and working is super important. The other thing I get asked is, do you do time tracking? And again, maybe not the right way of doing things, but I don't at all. I don't necessarily agree with it. I think, especially in your higher level operations, if you want to maybe time track a button pusher, like I said, maybe not the right terminology, but that's fine. Your manager, so to speak, or roles in that sense. Listen, get your job done. I love the work hard, play hard philosophy. As long as your job is getting done, as long as we're heading towards the end zone, right, so to speak, I'm cool. If you need to take a personal day, if you need to take a couple hours, whatever you need, because at the end of the day, we're human beings. We need time off. Things happen. So no, I don't do necessarily time tracking. And there's a lot of trust, right? There's a trust there, and it can be broken easily, but it can easily be gained. So I think that was a big part of, an early on decision too. Like when I was like, how do I differentiate myself from other companies? And coming from the company I did, I was able, luckily I was able to kind of work. My dad, who I worked for, gave me the freedom to kind of just take care of business. And I did. He didn't watch my every move or anything. And I was able to freely move and come up with ideas and do things, as long as I tried to reach for the goalpost, right? And as long as we increased sales, as long as we did what we needed to do to grow as a company. And I kind of take that same philosophy with each and every role that we have. Honestly, even the, quote unquote button pushers, I want them to have that desire to think freely, so that way they can potentially then move up and want to be here, right? So, I think that's important. And I think it's an important aspect that people need to think about when they're managing their team or having their daily meetings or whatever it might be, that we're dealing with people. We're not dealing with robots. You want AI to do all your, work, go for it. We're in the people business, and I love people. I love impacting people, whether it's a dollar raise or $1,000 raise, whatever it might be, whether it's, taking care of someone's, health insurance, or giving them a day off or a 2-week vacation, whatever it might be, that's more impactful than anything. And I could never replace that with AI or anything like that now. AI is definitely a big part of the operational side and needs to be leveraged, but people need to leverage that, I think, in a lot of senses. So, yeah, I think the other question that I get asked a lot, is, when do you hire more people? When do you hire more people? And, you probably talk to your accountant about this one, right? Because there's probably been times in our journey where we should not have hired. And I think I actually told probably 2 of my employees, I have no money to hire you, but I'm going to do it anyway. And so again, I think I've made a lot of interesting decisions throughout my operations journey and growing the team. But I look back on it and I don't think I have any regrets at all. And at the end of the day, I made it work. I brought my brother on shortly after a couple of other first hires, and he's been a big part of the business for a long time now. And I told him, luckily he started part-time because he was still in school, I think, or he was doing an internship. But I told him, I was like, listen, I don't necessarily have the money to bring you on, but I'll help you out a little bit. And then when he came and said, or when we talked about going full time, I was like, I'll make it work. We'll figure it out. And so that's when we hit another growth point in our business, and it just made sense. And we built from there. And then I think one of my other hires, I was honest with him. I was like, listen, I don't know that I can, but we'll figure it out. And we did. And so here we are. I think you're never going to know necessarily. Again, you could talk to your accountant and probably make some financial decisions that would make sense. But I truly believe when, again, I think I said this in the first episode, when your back's against the wall, you make the best decisions, or you at least make action. What's my mentor that always said, imperfect action, massive imperfect action, and you're forced to. So, you take massive imperfect action, and you figure it out. So again, I truly believe there's no playbook for this stuff, and you have to get uncomfortable and you have to make the decisions. Sometimes you got to go with your gut. Sometimes you got to make the decision based off of financials or analytics, whatever, but it's something that you have to just do and, live with. So you're going to make bad decisions and you're going to make good decisions. I don't know that I've made any crazy bad decisions when it's come to hiring or operations, because I look at every single experience as a learning experience. You know what I mean? I think when it comes to our processes and at every level, ads, SEO, web design, client success, everything, we've pivoted a lot. And I think that's what makes us unique, is we've been able to pivot. We've been able to adapt, where the companies that maybe they stay in that box of their operations, it is what it is. And I can't accept that. And as a company, everyone knows that we want to be different. We want to deliver at the highest possible level, and you can't do that in a box. So growing a team and growing your operations is super, super uncomfortable. At the end of the day, that's what it is. So moving on to, how that team operates at the highest level, right? You start to talk about culture, you start to talk about what gets them to tick. And let's be honest, money gets them to tick a lot of times. But a lot of times you start to really get into the nitty gritty. And, we did a core values exercise a couple months back, and that was so powerful. I know I've mentioned this before, or you might have seen it in my posts or anything like that, but Zig Ziglar, if you help enough people get what they want, you'll get everything in life that you want. That's where my company really grew from that saying, and a lot of the actions I take are because of that. And it goes with employees, right? Because if you can help each and every employee get what they want, you'll obviously get what you want. So we did a core values exercise, and I really started to understand what made people tick, what was everyone's beliefs. And that was super important for me and super important for the company, because we're able to adapt the way we do things, to help people just achieve their, and to perform at their role at the highest level. So I would highly recommend doing something like that, where you do like a core values exercise and you understand on a deeper human level how your employees tick. And that's really how then you can start to really build your culture. One of the cool things we did recently was invest in a system called So Work. And there's a couple other tools out there just like it, but it's literally a virtual office because we're all virtual, right? We're not in a physical location. So Work allows you to basically create that location virtually. And so you can see everyone at their desks and walking around, and they have tank wars where every Friday we'll hop in tanks and shoot each other and play a little game on a Friday afternoon. So there's just like cool little things like that. You can really start to see people's habits, and you can just pop into their office and have a meeting with them. It's super cool. But just little things like that really help to build the culture. I remember when we first did it, two of our employees were like, man, this makes me really happy. They were like, we don't know why, but I think it's important to do the little things as much as maybe the big things like a raise or something like that. And obviously when we have the opportunity to do, team building in person or get together, we certainly do it because that's important as well. It's hard, obviously, when you have a team, worldwide potentially, but any chance you can get together, I think is important. And not always work, because again, we're human beings first, and it's not always just about work. So I think you start to build your culture from that. And one of the things that you need to pay attention to as you grow is someone negatively impacting that culture, negatively impacting your core values, and if they should be there or not. That's something you always want to watch out for, because, it can be like cancer, and it can kill, your business and your growth. So I'm fortunate enough to say we haven't really had any of that, but I would think that if we did, we would, fire pretty fast. So I know people say, hire fast, fire fast, or hire slow, fire fast, in different scenarios, but, definitely something to look out for to protect that culture. I think that's super important. So overall, man, I think at the end of the day, you can't do it alone. I know there's a lot of people I talk to, they're like, yeah, I want to do it alone. That's fine. Like, if you don't want to grow a company, you're just like looking to do side income or whatever. Yeah, you don't need to do it alone. I could probably done it alone. I'd be happy. Be working a lot more, but be happy with it. And the margins obviously would be healthy, but I don't think we were put here to do anything alone. So I think, having a team that you can rely on, you can count on, you can go to, and again, not just talk about the work, but the personal stuff. That's what's going to grow that culture. That's what's going to grow that team. That's what's going to build trust. So, the other aspect is trusting the process. I'm confident in saying there's no right or wrong way to build any of this. Building, a system in your business or a team or hiring, there's no right or wrong way. There's just action, and you will figure out for you, for your business, for your team culture, what makes sense, what doesn't along the way. I think in anything in life, we could literally talk about anything. It's good to fail. It's good to learn. I mean, that's probably the biggest thing to take away. So hopefully this was helpful. I know I rambled a little bit, but that was kind of my journey through building a team, through part of our operations. I could certainly go into detail maybe with some of the tools, the platforms that we use, beyond like So Work that we do to build culture. But I think those are better for comments, or if you ever want to have a 5, 10, 15-minute conversation, don't be afraid to reach out to me. Always happy to do that with anyone. So looking forward to next episode. Stay tuned.